Headed down the shore? Skip the hassle. Let Beach Caddy handle the heavy lifting. Bellhop and beach cart rentals are available in Ocean City, Sea Isle, Avalon, Stone Harbor, and Wildwood. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off bellhop and cart rentals. Beach Caddy takes the stress out of your Jersey Shore trip. Go to beachcaddy.app. Use the promo code Jimbo for 10% off your move-in, move-out bellhop service and beach cart rentals. Best beach carts at the Jersey Shore. What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for July 28th, 2025. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Monday edition of the podcast. It was a fun, long weekend, but good to be back. Let's rewind the weekend like we always do on Monday, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Again, you'll be surprised. All of the great things that they've had coming out recently. So go to Philly Goat, check out their new shirts, and use that promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. Solid weekend for the Phils. Won 2 out of 3 up in New York. Friday night, Kyle Schwarber hit 2 bombs, got his 1,000th career hit. He becomes he has the way the stat was worded was weird, but he has the most home runs out of anybody at the time who had just under 1,000 hits. And even with 1,000 hits, 32% of his hits in his career have been home runs. Just remarkable. Sign the man, pay him, whatever you need to do to bring Kyle Schwarber back. Taiwan was solid. Gave up a few home runs, but those were the only issues he had as they won 12-5, pounded out 14 hits. More of the same on Saturday. Ranger was good. They win 9-5. Bryson and Mundo went deep. They pounded out 12 hits. And then, of course, Sunday, not so good. Zach Wheeler struggled somewhat. They lose 4-3. But unfortunately, despite a good week where they took 4 of 6 from the Red Sox and the Yankees, they lost ground in the NL East standings as the Mets swept both the Angels and the Giants to have a 1.5 game lead heading into today's play. Trade deadline's fast approaching. Lots of rumors. Got to see what they're going to do, but only 3 days away from the trade deadline. All kinds of rumors, so we'll see what Dombrowski does. But despite a good weekend, Phils do fall in the standings. Now trail the Mets by 1.5 games in the NL East. Great day yesterday for Dick Allen. Finally gets inducted into the Pro Baseball Hall of Fame, or Baseball Hall of Fame, I guess is what it's called. Well overdue, long overdue, much deserved. I know a lot of people still holding on to grudges and trying to make a case against him, but flat out, the dude was one of the best power hitters during his era, so finally gets the recognition and credit that he deserves. Some Aaron Nola news. He is set to start at some point this week at AAA up in Lehigh Valley, so hopefully, if all goes well with that, we'll have some Aaron Nola help on the horizon. So we'll see what happens with that. But yesterday, the Savannah Bananas this weekend, I should say, the Savannah Bananas were in town. It was good to see Shane Victorino on Saturday night. Joey Chestnut came in. They had an impromptu hot dog eating contest. Just a good time on Saturday night. And then yesterday, despite just being brutally humid, it was still a good time. Got shortened because of the rain that came through. Gritty was there. They did a lot of Eagle stuff. Players did a remake of Saquon's backwards hurdle. Of course, the pitcher then plunked the guy, but a good time. Kids enjoyed it. It was fun. It was entertaining. They do it right. For those of you who are out there who, and I saw it on Twitter, I'm not going to that. That's not baseball, blah, blah, blah. No, it's not baseball. It's entertainment. The kids were entertained. It was fun. I don't think anybody at that stadium yesterday went in looking for it to be real baseball. So good. It's not for you. But don't go out and rip people that enjoyed it, especially the kids. The kids absolutely enjoyed it. They were able to high-five the players coming in. And yes, we know it wasn't baseball. It was a circus act, as I saw somebody put it on Twitter. Good. It was fun. Entertained me. So good time was had. I was disappointed. I was hoping that they'd have, and I don't know if they just do it on the Saturday, but each show is different anyway. But Gritty, I guess, was the special guest. Had some fun with him and the Savannah Banana mascot. So Split was his name. So good time was had. We will be back in the lottery for next year again. That's how fun it was. Union with a 3-1 win Saturday night. Ty Barabo and Mikel Ua each scored. Ua scored 2 goals, one in the 89th minute and then one in stoppage time to give the Union the lead over Colorado. And then they are back now in first place in the MLS Eastern Conference. And the schedule is somewhat favorable for the Union down the stretch. They're not in the League's Cup, so they don't have those extra games. They are still in the U.S. Open Cup, but it's very favorable for the Union down the stretch. So we'll see what happens with them, but a good weekend for the Union. Pretty quiet at Eagles camp. They didn't practice yesterday, I don't think, but practice Saturday, and everything seems to be going, and these quiet camps are good. That means there's no drama, no injuries, nothing we need to be concerned about. So quiet is good. But the other big story was Friday, and I didn't get a chance to look at this until after I recorded on Friday. But the Eagles did send out emails, and I don't know if they sent it to everybody or people on season ticket holders or people on the wait list or whatever, but trying to figure out what to do with Lincoln Financial Field and possibly renovating, building a new stadium, a couple things. I don't think there's anything wrong with Lincoln Financial Field. I guess they want to upgrade and put in more boxes and suites, and they're trying to make it more of a all-day event, putting things out for fans and things like that. And truthfully, I don't know. I get it, but football is different. This is not the Phillies. This is not the Sixers or the Flyers even. I don't know. My biggest takeaway, my biggest concern is one of the reasons I like my seats is that we never had to pay the personal seat license, which we're up far enough. I don't think we should. And that seemed to be a big question, and the numbers they were throwing out there were outrageous. But truthfully, I get why they want to put a dome. I hate it. I absolutely hate the idea of a dome. To me, football should be played outside in the elements. That means if you're on the East Coast, that means a chance of rain. That means heat and humidity early in the season. Look at Tampa. I mean, you go down to Tampa Bay, the Eagles play horribly down there, and it's always hot. That means the snow. That means sleet, cold, wind. Putting a dome takes away how fun that playoff game was against the Rams, and going back to the Snow Bowl against the Lions. That was fun. It was fun to be a fan in there, and as miserable sometimes as it is, when it rains, 2 years ago, the Buffalo game was fun because it was raining. Nothing like going home after the game, getting showered, getting all nice and warm after being out in the cold all day. I don't like the stadium or the dome. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. I haven't heard really a lot of people in favor of a dome. And for everybody saying, oh, well, it'll bring the Super Bowl possibly to Philadelphia, none of us can afford to go to the Super Bowl anyway. So who cares if the Super Bowl is in Philly? I mean, at least I can't afford to go to the Super Bowl. But we'll see where that goes. But that seemed to be the big story on Friday. Sixers making some news this weekend, too. They waived Ricky Council IV. Basically, I guess they just did not think he was good enough. It's kind of a shocking move to me. I thought he was going to make the team, but I don't think this moves the needle much one way or the other. But it was a Sixers move. So what happened this weekend in Philly sports history? Well, on Saturday, July 26th, Milt Thompson, Von Hayes, and Mike Schmidt went back-to-back-to-back in a 7-3 win over the Braves in 1987. And I actually, for some odd reason, I remember the most random things. I remember this game. It was the first time I've ever seen back-to-back-to-back home runs. We had people over our house going swimming. But Milt Thompson, Von Hayes, Mike Schmidt go back-to-back-to-back. And then in 2018, the Phillies tied a team record with 7 home runs in a game. Rhys Hoskins, Maikel Franco, Nick Williams each hit 2. Carlos Santana hit 1 in a 9-4 win over the Reds. And then on July 27th, 1950, Del Ennis set a team record with 7 RBI in a game. That record is now 8, shared by 3 different people. And making it even more incredible, he did it in 2 innings, the 7th and the 8th. He had a 3-run double in the 7th and a grand slam in the 8th to set the team record. And then in 2008, the day we started to see things change in the landscape of Philly sports, the Philadelphia Soul beat the San Jose, I think they're the River Cats, 59-56 in Arena Bowl 22. Little did we know it was a sign of things to come as the Phillies would go on that fall to win the World Series. But just goes to show the sign, the curse of Billy Penn was ended when the Soul, and I guess it was a minor fringe sport, but the Soul kind of set off what was a great 2008 run for them, the Phillies, and even the Eagles to a certain point, who waited all the way as the 6th seed to the NFC Championship game. All right, that was the weekend. We rewind the weekend every Monday, brought to you by Philly Goat. Go to phillygoat.com, use the promo code Jim Montgomery to take 10% off of your order. All right, some quick housekeeping notes. Going back to last week, had a lot of people reach out regarding Hulk Hogan. Some positive, some negative. And look, I know it's complicated with Hulk Hogan. However, as I mentioned, I preach all the time about learning from mistakes, and truly the only one that knows if they learn from the mistakes or his mistakes is Hulk Hogan himself. But I mean, you can feel how you want to feel. I feel how I feel, but I agree. It is complicated, and thank you, positive and negatively, to everybody who reached out. And of course, how could I forget the most Philly Hulk Hogan tie there is? Thunder Lips in Rocky 3. Completely forgot about that when I was going through some of the Philly connections. So thank you to my listeners who pointed out that how could you forget Rocky 3? He was Thunder Lips. You're right. But be sure to follow me on social media, Jimbo_Mont on Twitter and TikTok. On Instagram, @PhillyJimbo. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mont, and continue to spread the word. As I always mention, there are highlights on my social media as I have the new studio here, which if you are watching this, I don't know how the final recording is going to come out. It doesn't look as clear as I'm used to seeing, but that's a whole other issue. But playing around with different ideas and different things with the highlights. So they're coming out later in the day. So if you're used to watching early or checking them out earlier, I'm still getting used to the navigation and everything. So just stay tuned for that. August, we go through this week, actually, Friday, we start our top 5 for the first 25, breaking down the top 5 list of various Philly sports things over the past 25 years. And hard to believe we're a quarter century into 2000 already. And then don't forget the pregame show coming up this fall with my brother. We'll preview, break down every Eagles game, give you some fantasy ideas, betting picks. The 3 keys to the game are coming back. KeyBank, if you're out there, still would love to have you sponsor that. So stay tuned for that later this summer. I should say not fall, later this summer. And then if you missed Fridays with AI last week, we did an alternate reality where the Phillies had Cliff Lee and Roy Halladay for the 2010 season and how it played out. So be sure to go back and check that out. And speaking of that, we talked about the trade that brought Roy Halladay to the Phillies, and I asked who was the future All-Star and World Champion that was involved in the trade that sent Roy Halladay to the Phillies, and that would be Travis d'Arnaud, who won a World Series with the Braves. Some people forget that he did get his start here in the Phillies organization. So Travis d'Arnaud was the guy, one of the prospects that was traded for Roy Halladay. I think that worked out pretty well for the Phils. This day in Philly sports history is proud to be a part of the Clashing Conferences Sports Fan Network, a growing community of diehard fans turning their sports passion into something special. Whether you're looking for unique shows, want to launch your own podcast but don't have the time, or need production services, the ClashingConferences.com has everything you need. Explore fan-driven content, become a member, or tap into their media services to level up your brand. That's ClashingConferences.com, where fans' voices get heard. All right, July 28th, we have two Phillies notes for you today. First, we're going to go back to 1993, and on this day in 1993, the Phillies beat the Cardinals 14-6 after Terry Mulholland gave up a grand slam in the first inning. The Phillies battled back. Lenny Dykstra had two doubles and scored 3 runs. Darren Daulton with a homer and a triple, 6 RBI. Dave Hollins had a triple and 3 RBI as the Phillies extended their lead to the Cardinals in the NL East to 6 games. And I just remember it got a little hairy there for the Phillies middle of July, but the end of July, going into August, they started to bring it back slightly. Phillies back in 1993 beat the Cardinals 14-6. Terry Mulholland settled in pretty nicely after giving up a grand slam in the first inning. And of course, the Phillies bats kept them in it. And then in 2002, Harry Kalas won the Ford C. Frick Award and was inducted into the broadcast wing of the Hall of Fame. Much deserved. He was the voice of the Phillies. He was synonymous with them. He made those games a lot of times during my childhood watchable because the teams were so pitiful. But Harry Kalas, voice of the Phillies, voice of my childhood. I talk about it all the time. And I know it's not hyperbole or anything like that. I feel Harry Kalas was the soundtrack to my summers. You throw on the radio. They used to, while we were outside playing, they used to rotate through who would do like every 3 innings or so. Like the TV guys would go to radio. Now it's separate TV guys, separate radio guys. But just hearing Harry Kalas, Richie Ashburn, Andy Musser, Chris Wheeler, all those guys, Kent Tekulve at one point, but Harry the K inducted into the Hall of Fame, the broadcast wing on this day back in 2002, much deserved, and I'm not going to butcher it on this good day trying to do a Harry Kalas impersonation, but he's inducted into the Hall of Fame on this day back in 2002. That does lead to today's trivia question. I'm going to do a 2-parter today. I'll give you a bonus as well. But the trivia question is, what future basketball Hall of Famer did Harry Kalas take over for when he became the voice of the Phillies? Hit me up on the social media. Hit me up on the Discord channel, which is the first link in the description. Back to the Future Voice and text line, 267-495-8531. But who did Harry Kalas take over who would become a future basketball Hall of Famer as the voice of the Phillies? And then a bonus, what team did Harry Kalas come from before he came to the Phillies? So 2 good questions for you there. Get your answers in no matter how you can. All right, we have another winner in our greatest individual season in Philly sports history. The Flyers region. It was Eric Lindros from 94-95. Beating Bernie Parent pretty soundly with 71% of the vote. So the number 4 seed, Eric Lindros, 94-95, won the Hart Trophy in the lockout shortened season. Just had a ridiculous stretch. I think 70 points in 46 games or something. So Eric Lindros is our Flyers winner. He's set to move on to the Final Four as we crown the greatest individual season, which will happen on Thursday. All right, who wins the Sixers region? Today, we have a doozy of a matchup, and I've been saying this, but this one, it's going to be hard to pick one here. We got the number 1 seed, Moses Malone from 82-83, taking on the number 2 seed, Wilt Chamberlain from 61-62. First, Moses, he was an MVP, All-Star, All-NBA, All-NBA defensive first team, averaged 24.5 points a game, 15.3 rebounds a game. That was the famous faux. They were not able to get it done. It went 4-5-4, but helped lead the Sixers to their first championship since 1966-67. In the playoffs, Moses averaged 26 points a game, almost 16 rebounds en route to the finals MVP. Wilt, back in 61-62, playing for the Philadelphia Warriors, was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, All-NBA, made the All-Star game, finished second in the MVP, which is an absolute travesty when you hear these stats. He averaged a whopping 50 points per game, 25.7 rebounds a game, 48.5 minutes a game. A regular game is only 48 minutes, so they played a lot of overtime games, and that means Wilt was in there for the overtime. That was the year he scored 100 points in a game up in Hershey. Unfortunately for the Sixers, they lose in the playoffs in the division finals to the Celtics in 7 games. But now it's your turn. Whose season was better? Moses in 82-83, Wilt in 61-62. Get your vote in any way you can. Social media, Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, send carrier pigeons, smoke signals, whatever you got to do. Get that answer in. But whose season was better? Moses in 82-83, Wilt in 61-62. I don't know which way I would go with this. So your turn now. Also, be sure to like, subscribe, review, leave a comment on any of the platforms where you're watching or listening to this. All of it helps us outsmart the algorithm. And then be sure to check out our friends over at Lotwin. Get your custom 3D hype chains from Lotwin. Go to lotwin.com. Use the promo code TCCPOD to take 10% off of your order. All right, we're going to crown the Sixers champion today. Back in 2002, Harry Kalas inducted into the broadcast wing of the Baseball Hall of Fame. In 1993, Phillies beat the Cardinals 14-6 after falling behind early. Terry Mulholland settled in as the Phillies bats came alive and gave the Phillies a 6-game lead over the Cardinals in the NL East. Phillies in action tonight to take on the White Sox. Should be, I would think, a good way to go into the trade deadline. Easily should win 2 of 3. Should probably sweep this team. The Giants or the Mets are out in San Diego to take on the Padres. So let's go Padres. Let's go Phils. We'll have an update on Eagles camp as well as the Phillies, as tonight I believe it is Christopher Sanchez. Tomorrow is Jesus Luzardo, and then Taijuan Walker on Wednesday as the Phils look to win the series against the White Sox. More news on the Sixers if we get it, but lots to get to today as we reround the weekend. Good weekend for the Phils. Unfortunately, they did not gain any ground on the Mets, who the Mets went 6-0 this week. Phillies went 4-2, so now the lead is at a game and a half. All right, this has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 28th, 2025. My name's Jim Montgomery. Stay cool out there today. It's going to be brutal. Go have yourselves a Monday, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.